not easy, but the higher heights I climb.
I'm determined to succeed, so no excuses, please. If you don't want success in life, then don't hinder me. You are a CEO. You are a CEO.
I've got to manage myself, I've got to manage my mind. The task is not easy, but the high heights I climb.
I'm determined to succeed, so no excuses, please. If you don't want success in life, then don't hinder me.
Hello everyone, Michael Lee Parker here at COTV Live, and I have a special guest with me, Mr. Evodio Walle, or Vo. It's good to see you.
Thank you, sir.
Such a pleasure to have you on the show, and I know this is a show you all been waiting on, and we talked about this show, and I have a special guest right up front. But before I get to that, I want to remind you, if you could look on the screen real quick, you want to subscribe to our YouTube channel to make sure you always know about all of our shows, and also make sure you join our Facebook group so that you can also begin to see all the things that we're posting in our URCO movement group. But tonight, we are focused on an important topic, which is reinventing yourself. And so I want to, before we even got deep into the show, I wanted to just jump right in with a special guest that no one was expecting. And here you are, president of the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, Contra Costa County. And I know you've seen a lot. Before getting to the chamber, give me just a quick thought about what reinvention means to you.
I think taking accountability, Michael, I think that's first and foremost what ultimately propels a person, and I think that that's what gave me my opportunities, is that I took accountability for my actions.
Okay.
So,
that's really good, taking accountability for your own actions. Well, let's talk a little bit about you for a second. So let's get a little personal. And, you know, I know you've had a long-standing career before you became the president of the Hispanic Chamber. You know, there was a lot of things you went through in your own career.
Yeah.
Have you had to reinvent yourself, you know, at different times to keep moving? Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Numerous times. So there's been an evolution, really, of character, of professional hard skills. So
that's good.
I would say that over the course of time, there's been a phase that I've of struggled with and had to overcome certain things before I could go on and achieve the next. And so that's been really the cadence that I've been on.
So it's been a reinvention not only in career and professional things, but even in personal and character
Absolutely,
things.
yeah.
So do you think that's important to not only look at one side? Because sometimes when people hear reinventing themselves, they think a lot about business, but they
Hard
don't
skills,
think
yeah.
about, they don't think about the softer side.
Yeah.
So what do you think that's just as critical?
It's everything. In fact, it's first and foremost, you have to come from a solid personal foundation, and then everything else is really just how you want to show up.
Right, absolutely. Well, let's swing over to, you know, some of the people you deal with. So you deal a lot with, you know, whether it's businesses, political figures, people that are trying to do things. And, you know, I know a lot of times people in the business world today, they're trying to figure out how to be successful. And in some of the, you know, even the political groups you deal with, they're trying to figure out how to serve the community better. How has reinvention played a role in things that you see are needed in the business community as well as some of the other social communities that you deal with?
Sure. So what's been key for me has been to expand the size of the lens that I'm looking at the world through. So if I'm, let's say, coming at the world with the goal of promoting myself, then I'm kind of looking at the world through a very kind of, you know, self-centered, myopic lens almost. Whereas if I'm considering you and everything else around me, now I've got a much broader panoramic view of opportunity, of liabilities, and I can adjust my course of action to align myself with success.
Right. So you then say that a lot of it starts with the lens that you look through.
Yeah.
So do you think that that's one of the first things that all of us need to consider, whatever we're dealing with, is how are we looking at things? Because I know before you can reinvent, you have to see something.
That's right.
Right? So reinvention doesn't fall out of the sky.
Yeah.
You have to see something.
Yeah.
And I think that there's new things in the community and technology and even in the business today that are new challenges that force you to have to start looking through a new lens. So would you say that sometimes challenges is creating the fertile soil for reinvention to come up?
Yes, there's definitely a calibration. I think that when we come out of the gate, we can maybe sometimes overdo things, and sometimes the subtleties are the challenges. If you've ever played with a microscope in school and have had the challenge of kind of getting that little slider thing and kind of focus, you'll notice that a little nudge to the right kind of sends you way off. And so that's a point in time when the micro movements are very critical to achieve success and to gain visibility of your situation. And so what I think a lot of people struggle with is looking inward. And so right now, we've got two eyes, we've got almost, you could say a pretty good range of vision, you know, almost like, like strong periphery. I can, see this screen here and, see people sitting here. And when I do that on a day in and day out basis, it's very natural. But to go inward, well, now I've got to kind of shut everything out. And so that's that very narrow lens, and that's where all the personal development happens when you go inward. And that's a very strong lens to master your perception.
Well, that's a very, very important point in when you think about going inside out, right? Yeah. So being able to start inside and then seeing how that expands out into the things that your life touches, right? So if I touch my family, I touch my business, I touch my employees. So once I start inside, I can start seeing, how that impacts everything else. But when I do that, and now I've explored that enough to know that I need to reinvent myself, what advice would you give for the courage that is then needed to move into this new territory? Because maybe I did look inward, but then when I saw what I saw and I realized what I need to do to maybe make a shift or a nudge or a pivot, there's that something that comes up that gives me that fear. What do you think? What would you say to people that's dealing with that?
Well, I would say that just as, it takes practice to get to get a steady hand. Let's say if you're a surgeon and you're going to do that very, small incision. I mean, every little micro movement is very critical, and that takes practice before you can get to that level. So to be able to go inwardly is not a matter of, looking inside and then getting freaked out and then, going out into the world and making a mess out of your life because you got a good glimpse of yourself and maybe you didn't like what you saw. And,
Right.
And now you realize that, you know, you've got a whole bunch of challenges. So you get out into the world with something to prove, something to kind of knock over, and then before you know it, your life's a mess.
Right.
And so I've certainly experienced that myself. And so I've realized that once you come inward and you're able to find that peace there, that focus and calibrate, suddenly everything in the outer world is really at your command, and you can master whatever you set your focus on.
I really like that. That's very well put. And I think, you know, it's really interesting what you said about when you start to see things and then it scares you, right? Yeah. Or even you realize situations is causing you to have to make a change, and that can kind of scare you. When you think about business today, all of the things that technology has changed, and I know you like technology too, but when you think about technology, I mean, it's literally changed so much about how we see the world and how we interact with the world. Yeah. I think that some of these pressures have caused us to have to reinvent and look for new ways to do things. So do you think that amongst some of the businesses that you see, that what are some of the areas that you think that they're having to find new ways to do things that have gotten away from tradition?
Yeah, well, it's interesting, you know, when you talk about technology and then you bring in tradition, there's an interesting interplay between those two. When you consider the most advanced technology, we start to call it artificial, you know, some form of intelligence or something like that, because ultimately technology is trying to, or we're creating technology to emulate humans. And so at some point, we become extensions of the technology. It used to be that if you had a cell phone, that cell phone was an extension of you. Now, you know, you got your calendar, you got the power, you know, in your hand. And then now, you know, we have basically automated plants, and that's the future, basically, where we have, you know, like the logistics industry, the automobile manufacturing industry. These are being revolutionized by automation. So now they need one guy in there to manage the tools, and so we are now becoming an extension of the technology.
I know,
so isn't that crazy, right? And so at some point now, that when the AI gets really smart,
scary,
and we're all training it, we're all part of that, right? So at the end of the day, I think that the real core message here is your leverage is always your humanity. So when you can really invest time in understanding what that means, there's no tech that can really take your place, because there's always going to be something that you're going to be delivering of value. And if we all basically ascend at the same pace, you know, then there's a way to, you know, serve each other in that new context, as opposed to maybe all slaving for some, you know, established construct that that we created around us that maybe doesn't quite bring us to happiness.
And it really seems like that. And I know you got to go. I'm so thankful you stopped by. I know you're on the run, taking care of business, but it's so important that now, because of the reinvention and how things are moving, you know, we still got to keep that sense of character coupled with the reinvention, so that we're able now to see how do we use the technology in a smart way to where, you know, we still find our place in terms of how we apply good thinking, and even using some of these things for good purposes, and even becoming better people while we do better things in business and in the community. So I know you're all about that, and I just want to thank you for what you're already doing out there. And thank you so much for stopping by. So just give someone a 5-second anything that's out there struggling with reinvention. What do you want to tell them?
Well, really, the world is yours. I mean, kind of like that Scarface the mantra, right? Was it when he had that moment, you know, where he kind of just opened up, you know, to use one of the favorite cult classics. It's really kind of at that level, or use whatever, you know, movie metaphor you want. You know, when the guy in the Matrix suddenly kind of sees everything. Right?
Ones and zeros.
You have to get to that tipping point in your life where suddenly you realize, like, oh, okay, I see how this works. I see the puppet master and the strings, and I understand how this is all really put together, and the fastest route to doing that is to look inward. So
very beautifully said. Thank you so much. And so there you have it. We're started off really well talking about reinvention. We're going to have a short clip that I want you to watch about reinventing yourself, and when we come back, I'm going to pull the whiteboard out and we're going to go deeper into this topic. We'll be right back.
Invent yourself and then reinvent yourself. Don't swim in the same slough. Invent yourself and then reinvent yourself, and stay out of the clutches of mediocrity. Invent yourself and then reinvent yourself. Change your tone and shape so often that they can never categorize you. Reinvigorate yourself and accept what is, but only on the terms that you have invented and reinvented. Be self-taught and reinvent your life because you must. It is your life, and its history and the present belong only to you.
All right, everyone, I hope you enjoyed that clip about reinvention. And again, this is tonight. I want to remind you where you've come to. Let's put that on the screen. This is Reinventing Yourself. And again, we kicked the show off with Evodio Walle, president of the Hispanic Chamber, and had a great discussion about reinvention and how the world is changing personally as well as in business. And I want to go a little bit deeper and just talk a little bit more about reinventing yourself. And all of you that are listening tonight, I want you to think about the fact that reinventing is something that you will have to face. It's not optional. It's something we all have to think about, because as long as there's change, as long as there's things happening in the world, we're going to have to think about how we adjust to what is happening. Now, if we just take a step back, you remember a time where we think about different industries that have existed, and a lot of times we would think about the manufacturing industry or certain industries that we were used to, that were stable, that things that we, didn't have to change a lot. You got one job and you were basically in the bubble, right? And you get inside that bubble and you had security. And there was a lot of security inside of that bubble. And we would think about, how can I grow, take care of my family, support everything that is needed? And then as things began to change, we started to see different industries coming about and different things beginning to happen to where there were other job opportunities that we had never seen before. But if I got my skills in a particular area, and I'm just using professional aspect, if I got my skills in a particular area, I would look for another company, because competition started to come. Now I can find another company doing something similar and then move to that company doing the same thing, right? So this is, again, it didn't require a lot of reinvention. It just required me to find more opportunities that look similar to the one I was in, and to take who I was as a professional and move it into another company. And so I could do that, more and more. And first we started to notice the big change was the fact that we even needed to make these adjustments, that we couldn't stay in one company forever. So that long-term relationship began to change to a short-term relationship. And we started to notice the difference. But one of the things that has happened is now we're in a situation where you might start off in a particular bubble, but now you're moving to not only a new company, you might be moving to a whole new industry, right? Something requires a total different set of skills, a different environment, a different structure. All of these things would be very different. And this is why we have to relook at things. And then I might move from here and actually move to another opportunity that looks totally different than that one. So these adjustments is why we have to start thinking about reinvention. And these shapes that I'm putting up, not only do they apply to business, but they also can apply to me as an individual. Thinking about things that I have to adjust to. There's some people that started off a certain way and didn't know, as they went along, they didn't know what age that they might become a father. Or some people married into a relationship where there was a son or daughter involved, and they had to reinvent themselves into a mom, into a father. Sometimes you're put in a new position, and you're a person that doesn't like to communicate as much, and you have to reinvent yourself as a leader when you're used to maybe just being a hard worker. Sometimes it could be in the professional sense where I'm reinventing because I have to go into a whole nother group or industry because some industries are gone. Now think about this. We've moved into a time period where technology is moving so fast, right? So we have such a fast pace of change. And this fast pace of change is requiring us to deal with this idea of reinvention, because things are changing so fast that not only might you lose your job, right? You might lose a whole company, and then you might lose an industry. So think about that this is how quick things are moving. There are actual things that don't exist anymore, right? So, the tape cassette is gone. And if you were in a business making tape cassettes, you are gone. Blockbuster video is gone, right? These things completely changed. Look at what the cell phone has done. Look at what social media has done. Marketing will never be the same. Look at what is happening to the cable industry right now with all of the new advances in technology of how people are bringing television to others. So we are looking at such a fast-paced change that it is requiring reinvention. So again, the fast pace of change necessitates the need for reinvention. And this is what we're talking about. Now, when we think about reinventing, a few things that I want to call out. So a lot of times when we're thinking about reinvent, the biggest wall, right, that is in our way is the fear of the unknown, right? So that wall of fear is really something that we begin to deal with. So when I'm challenged with having to reinvent, I'm challenged with what do I need to do now that I've not done before, I have a new vision, a new idea, a new way that I need to approach something so that I can grow, either as a person or a professional. Fear is the first thing that we begin to feel. And the reason is we all value comfort. And what is comfortable is what we normally want to stick to. We want to stick to what is comfortable. When things are comfortable, of course, we are much more happy because we know that exactly what to expect. We know exactly what's going to happen. These are the skills we've always used. This is the approach we've always used. This is the personality. This is the way we've always shown up. I don't have to be made uncomfortable. But when you start dealing with reinvention, when you start dealing with now I'm going towards something I have not done before. Some of you have taken up things that you never thought you were going to be doing. Think about what you thought you were going to do when you were in high school and what you said you were going to be and what you ended up being. It is even more so today that people are, in companies for short periods of time, always pushing themselves to make sure they don't get stuck in a place of comfort, but they're willing to face their fears of the unknown to move themselves forward. Now, when you're dealing with reinvention and we're dealing with fear and all of these things, one thing that we have to keep in mind is that reinvent is also close to another word, reinvest. And I want you to think about that. So moving from reinvent to reinvest. And what do we mean by that? That we have to begin to reinvent, really look at it as reinvesting in yourself. Investing new skills into your bag, investing new opportunities, new ways of thinking, and all of those new ways of thinking and new skills can then lead you to be able and equipped to handle a new opportunity. So we have to be willing to do that. If we want to reinvent, we have to be willing to reinvest. Now, when you think about reinvesting, right, so I'm going to do something different, that means I need a new set of knowledge, a new set of skills, and a new set of abilities. abilities. And so that is where, again, that fear begins to come in. Can I develop those skills? Can I learn what I need to learn? Can I survive the adjustment? So this is where my emotions kick in, and all my doubts, all my insecurities, the things that would remind me of why I can't. But see, you have to begin to push yourself to say, no, I can reinvent myself. I can grow. I can make a positive adjustment in my life. This new potential opportunity for me to feed my family, I have to face it. If I don't change, I'll be stuck. And not only will I not be able to take care of myself, I won't be able to take care of those around me that I love. And let that fuel your willingness to reinvest in yourself, and there will be a return. And so if we reinvent, we reinvest, we will get a return from that investment. So this is what we want to lead to. Now, so a few more things about this reinvention that I want to explain. So when we think about a big challenge of reinvention is that almost every time you reinvent, you have to give something up, right? Giving something up is very hard, right? When you have to give something up. Now, here's a key though. There are two sides to giving something up. Now, let's say that there is something that doesn't work, right? It has not worked. So, what do you think I should do with something that doesn't work? Okay, all of you out there, I want you to think about it. What should you do if something doesn't work, right? You try something and it doesn't work. You tried a particular job, a particular skill. You tried a specific approach in a relationship, in business, as a leader, whatever it is, and it doesn't work. So when you think about that, how hard is that to give up? Something that doesn't work, right? So if I got this marker, and if it didn't work, you wouldn't have to push me to get rid of it. I would want to get something that works, right? If you had a car and it didn't work, it wouldn't be hard to say, I want to give this car up. It doesn't work, right? We can keep on going, right? Anything that doesn't work, you don't mind getting rid of it. Here's the problem with reinvesting and reinventing. When you reinvent, you have to be willing to give up things that do work, right? That have worked, right? So when you look at things that have worked, now I want you to think about this. This is what's tough about reinventing, is I have always done this. This is how I've built my career, and now I have to reinvent into a world that I don't know and give up what has worked. I want you to see that. This is where reinventing is really, gets deep into the challenge of reinventing, is when we have to give up things that have worked. So I want you to think about that. Anything that you're trying to bring out of yourself, if you want to be a better leader, a better mom, a better father, a better person, a better professional, a better leader, a better CEO, a better entrepreneur, a better athlete, a better fitness individual. You want to be better with your health. Anything that you have to do, it means giving up things that have worked. When I made a change in my health, there were things that worked for me, right? Sugar worked for me. Food tasted good. It wasn't bad. I liked it, right? But to reinvent, I had to give up things that worked for me. And that's what people don't always understand. So being willing to give up things that have worked for you, to begin to explore new opportunities, to build new ideas and new connections to create a new you. So if we're going to build a new you, we have to be willing to let go of something to grab something else. So I want to invite you, when you think about reinventing, it has a lot to do with understanding. First of all, let me give you this before we wrap up here. There needs to be a need to reinvent or an opportunity to reinvent. Both of these are critical. These are two critical reasons that I would reinvent, right? So let's say I went to the doctor and the doctor told me I now have diabetes. I have to reinvent myself because of a need, right? So it don't matter, how I feel. If I want to live, I have to reinvent myself, right? I'm gonna be willing to reinvest new knowledge about what it means to eat better, live better, work out, and do the things that are required for me to fight against that disease. And it requires a new set of knowledge, a new set of skills, using my time differently to invest in myself. And once I learn that, the courage then to walk in that, right? And then another angle could be opportunity. So maybe you always thought that you wanted to be in sales, right? And you've tried sales jobs, you've done good things, but an opportunity arises for you to move into customer service. And you realize that you always have liked people, but you've always associated yourself with sales, and it's worked for you because everyone has told you you're a good salesperson. But now a new opportunity has come for you to reinvent yourself. It's a good job, it's good paying, and it's a better environment, and the schedule with that job will allow you to live the life that you want to support your family. What are you going to do? Are you going to stick with what's comfortable? Are you going to stay in sales? Are you going to be willing to learn new things and take some of the skills you have and apply them in a new way, and then add new skills you never had to be a new you to create new opportunities for yourself and your family? This is what we mean when we talk about reinventing yourself. So these are some things I want you to keep in mind. We talked about how things have changed, what's happening in the industries, in the workforces, and what it means to actually change not only jobs, but actual changing you, because the reinvention requires. We talked about the fast pace of change driving the need for reinvention, how fear steps in as soon as we want to reinvent. We would rather be comfortable than to move forward into that new you that is required for a new destiny, a new opportunity. We talked about reinvent, reinvest, leading to a return, and how important it is to realize if I'm going to reinvest through reinvention, then I am going to have to give up not just what didn't work, but be willing to give up things that did work so that now I could grow into something I've never seen. We're going to have one more clip here before I come back and close out the show, and we're talking about reinvesting and reinventing in ourselves so that we can survive the times that we're in. Watch this short clip, and I'll be right back. Well, I hope you enjoyed that clip, and I hope you enjoyed all the great information that you've got here tonight. We talked about reinventing yourself, and I just want to give you some final thoughts before we close out this show, and I tell you about our next exciting show. I want to make sure you really took this to heart, because this is something we're going to all have to deal with. The world is changing, and not only is the world changing, it is getting more difficult just to have a normal life. We're full of distraction. Traffic is worse. There's more people everywhere. All the distractions that we have. All of these things are requiring us to change all the time. We have to be dynamic people, dynamic professionals, dynamic entrepreneurs. And I want to invite you that the things you heard tonight are so important for you to relook at what's going on in your world. Look at what's happening in your life. Don't just look at it on a professional level, look at it on a personal level as well. As we talked about in our first discussion with Evodio Walle, we talked about how important it is to start on the inside, to start with what's going on with you. And think about areas that you might need to reinvent so that you can grow. Because the more that you begin to grow as a person, you'll prepare yourself to grow as a professional or as an entrepreneur. Now, I want you to remember this. Fear is one of the things we always talk about here at You Are a CEO, and it's one of the first things that we are confronted with when we want to reinvent. And I want to invite you not to listen to that voice of fear and be willing to strive for excellence at doing the most you can to keep investing new things in you so that you can continue to increase your skills and not be afraid to confront new opportunities. Whatever thoughts you had, whatever thing you felt, I want you to ignore that when it comes to things you know you need to do right now to take yourself to the next level. If you got to change jobs, if you got to change careers, if you're going to have to step into a new role, if you're going to have to do something new to help your children, if you have to do something new in your relationships, do not let that stop you. When you reinvent, when you reinvest, you will get the return. Thank you so much. I want to now tell you just a little bit about where we are headed. But before I do, YouRCEO.com is the place where you need to register to join the movement. So if you're watching this, make sure that you go to YouRCEO.com if you haven't already and join the movement. Become a part of our club and get more great breakthrough workshops, coaching, training, as well as some of our social groups that will allow you to live this life that we're talking about, being the CEO of yourself. I also want to remind you that we want to live, learn, and earn. We live the life of a self-leader. We're learning more about how to grow as a person as well as a professional, and then we're earning through our affiliate program. So if you love what You Are a CEO is about, think about it. You can earn by spreading the word and growing this community. Find out more by getting involved in our applications on YouRCEO.com. And once you register, you can download our app, and it'll be all in the palm of your hand. Now, having said that, our next show is going to be one you do not want to miss. This is going to be on Monday night, July 15th, and we're going to be talking about surviving the corporate world. And I'm going to have a special guest with a long resume, and we're going to go deep into what does it take today to survive the corporate world. There's so much happening, so much changing, and as we were talking about reinventing ourselves, how do we survive this corporate world and make sure we set ourselves up to be the CEOs of our corporate success? Thank you so much for tuning in. This has been another show here at CEO TV Live. And as always, let the whole world know that you are a CEO. Continue to spread the word and continue to live the life, because every time you come here, we realize that success is something we create. We're not waiting for it to happen. Until next week, I'm Michael E. Parker, and we'll see you here on CEO TV Live. Thank you for tuning in.
Yes, let the whole world know. I'm a CEO.